here's what I would compare libertarian to if it was a religion. Don't get upset here. I'm just telling you, if you were a religion.
It's my religion. It's fine.
I would say you're like Scientology, okay? And
wait, they have famous people.
They do.
I was about to go there. I was about to go there. To say Scientology for the longest time has been trying to sell. And if you go to Scientology, like in 2002, I was a guy on the streets going to every church. I'm debating everybody. I'm trying to look, what is this all about? And I'm an atheist at the time. And I would go to Scientology and I would say, so tell me, who is God? Who do you think God is? No, I'm asking you, who is God? Who do you think God is? I said, no, I'm asking you, you're a religion, you have a 501c3 under that tax code, you're structured as a religion, you got that tax code back in the days, you had great lawyers. Who is God? Who's God to you? I went everywhere asking people who is God. They couldn't tell me who God was, right? I said, okay. So whoever you want God to be, that's the argument. Whoever you want God to be is your God. Okay. How about this? Who do you want it to be? Whoever you want it to be. So the philosophy is very much about whatever you want to do is yours. Whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do, right? Okay. You know, that attracted some people on whoever you want to be. And L. Ron Hubbard wrote all these books. Dianetics has started with that and all this other stuff. And next thing you know, Adam, that kind of contradicts the argument of having a big name because they've had all the big names over the years. I mean, you can't get bigger names than these guys got, right?
You're saying Scientology?
But they haven't gotten bigger. Their membership's going down. It's not at the peak it used to be. Now, maybe it's because of Miscavige. Maybe it's because of whatever. I'm not going to talk on that. All I'm saying is that part. Now, let me go to the other side. There are roughly 200 libertarian politicians out there. Almost every one of them is local, okay? You have a Justin Amash who ran as a Republican, switched to a Libertarian in Michigan, I want to say.
Yep, Michigan.
And then he's like, I'm done, right? Then you have Jeff Hewitt, who is the highest ranked Libertarian. I think it's Riverside County,
California.
He has a job there. And then you got a couple other guys that are doing what they're doing that are highly ranked, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, I think what you're doing is great. You got to go out and promote your message and do what you're doing. But I think you guys got to get more grassroots on the bottom to get more people selling locally.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
And yeah, it's to sell people locally and then go to the top. Now, what would help on your end, because yesterday I'm sitting, I'm like, listen, I have a painting in my club room in my house, and the painting has Milton Friedman there. I'm a Milton Friedman guy. And Milton Friedman, what made him unique, remember that Michael Moore debate with Milton Friedman? I don't know if you've ever seen it or not. Michael Moore, 17 years old. You ever seen this?
Was that really Michael Moore?
Yeah.
I've seen people say it was young Michael Moore, but then I saw other people be like, that wasn't Michael Moore.
No, but the people, that's Michael Moore who was debating the whole Pinto,
Wow.
you know, with all that
Milton
stuff.
Friedman
Crazy.
was great at that
Milton
stuff.
Friedman is something else, right? So but he was all about debate, right? Okay, which is essentially a little bit of the what's going on right now. There's a little bit of pushback. So I thought, let me see how this guy sold it. So the founder of Libertarian is this guy named Nolan, right? David Nolan. He starts in
Like the party,
1971, right? Of the party, Colorado Springs. So why did he start this? What's his motive? Okay, so it was inspired by the Austrian School of Economics, not Ludwig von Mises. It was more Murray Rothbard. And that time when the party got started, it was because of 4 reasons. One was Nixon, okay, what he was doing, his administration. They were not for it. It's the Vietnam War. Why do we have to do this whole conscription? I think it's like when people are just getting drafted without a choice.
Yeah.
And then it was start a fiat gold standard. That was a time where he kind of switched. Like, listen, guys, we got to do something about this. So he created this Nolan chart and started going around to everybody and talking about, hey, left, hey, right. You may not be what you think you are. You may be this. And oh, shit, this kind of makes sense.
The world's smallest political quiz. By the way, you can get that quiz on theadvocates.org if you want to go to that quiz.
And it's easy.
It's a simple quiz.
Theadvocates.org, the world's smallest political quiz.
So there is an interview Milton Friedman does. I think everybody has to watch. One of them is Phil Donahue. If you haven't watched a 45-minute one, part 1, I believe, you got to watch it when he's talking about Nader. I think he's talking about Nader. But there's another one that I watched that he is being asked about the Libertarian Party. So what's the Libertarian Party? And he says, look, there's 2 ways of Libertarian Party. I've debated Yaron Burke before. I was a host at one of the Ayn Rand events that took place a few years ago in Newport Beach. One, he says, is the Ayn Rand one, which is like nothing. Like everything is, leave everything alone. And then there is the version that he is more for, which is, hey, there's a little bit of a, consequentialist libertarianism, he explains. Then the guy starts asking questions saying, which one of these federal government agencies do we need to abolish? Which one of them to keep? Out of the 14 that he's asking the question. Department of Agriculture, abolish. Department of Education, abolish. Department of Commerce, abolish. Department of Defense, keep it. Department of Energy, abolish half, put the rest under defense. Okay. Department of Health and Human Services. It's interesting what he said. He says, well, yeah, we kind of can, but we need it because of contagion and pandemic and things like that. Department of Housing and Development, abolish. He said this one hurt America the most, by the way, housing and urban, housing and development. Department of Interior, first you have to sell the land that the government owns. Why does the government own all this land? He says, should government have any land except for the buildings that the government works out of? Everything else, give it to the people. You shouldn't own all this land. Department of Justice, keep it. Department of Labor, abolish. Department of Transportation, abolish. Department of State, keep it. Department of Treasury, keep it to collect taxes was the main thing that he talked about. Yeah. Department of Veteran Affairs, abolish. Yeah. This is not FDA, CIA, CDC, NIH, FBI, NHS, DEA, ATF, which ATF makes no sense. Alcohol, tobacco, firearm. What the hell are we talking about ATF today? And we got all these people working for them.
That's a store.
Yeah.
It should be a store.
So that's how he sold it. Then he said the government's role is a few things. Preserve the peace and defend the country, okay, which is defense. Provide a mechanism whereby individuals can adjudicate their disputes, Justice Department, right? Mm-hmm. Protect individuals from being coerced by others, individuals, police, and leave that at the state and local level. So that's how Milton sold it. Which part of what Milton said do you guys disagree with today? Because this was nearly 40 years ago.
Well, all of that would be a pretty good start. So I think, I am more of a Rothbardian than a Friedmanite. I'm a libertarian because I believe in natural rights and I believe that government destroys people's lives, and I find that morally egregious. But I do think that this kind of consequentialist argument is important also, that things would work a lot better if we let voluntary human action dictate them and markets rather than, top-down authoritarian states. I think that there's so much of the federal government that needs to be abolished that getting into whether or not he's completely right about keeping the Justice Department, I probably disagree. I think that could be handled by the states better. In terms of keeping the Defense Department, there should be a drastic rollback of the military-industrial complex. The Defense Department does not specialize in defending this country. They specialize in starting aggressive wars for very specific corporate interests at this point. There's not been a real defensive need for the Defense Department since, certainly not in my lifetime. But
you really believe that?
That what military
He's 100%
action,
correct.
What military action has in my lifetime, has there been one war that was a justified defensive war?
Well, 9/11.
Let me ask you a question.
Well, okay, 9/11 certainly was a result of a lot of military intervention preceding 9/11. The people who attacked us on 9/11 were people who we were sponsoring, teaching them how to lure the Soviets into Afghanistan and bleed an empire dry. We then, radicalized them against us, and certainly,
I don't think that's the angle I'm going to. 9/11 is a byproduct of Jimmy Carter's bad policies back in 1979 with the human rights movement that he had. He asked the Shah to release 3,000 prisoners that he had, and the 3,000 prisoners that were released ended up turning into ISIS and all that other stuff. So that
well, hold on, but there's a lot in between there. So, but also Jimmy Carter in the last year, as Zbigniew Brzezinski brags in his memoir, that they were working to lure the Soviet Union into Afghanistan to give them their own Vietnam. And then in the Reagan years, we armed and trained what was the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, which was Osama bin Laden and the same group of guys who turned into Al-Qaeda. We then, under Barack Obama, sided with Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Libya, in Syria, and in Yemen, gave them a whole bunch more weapons and stuff like that. So there's been, yes, 9/11 was awful. We should have, in response to that, killed and captured the people who were responsible for that.
But that has nothing to do.
War. That has nothing to do with a regime change war against the Taliban.
Yes,
we could have cleaned that up by Christmas of 2001.
But you're saying we don't need a Department of Defense?
That's not what he said.
Okay, you're saying we don't need the 730,000 employees of Department of Defense.
Yes, we don't need the $1 trillion a year empire, which we maintain.
What about the hundreds of bases all around the world? Pat's
close
800 to be. China's got one base.
Yeah. Close every single one of them and bring every single troop home. We're not supposed to be an empire. We are supposed to be a republic, and we have no need for our country, for our defense. It does nothing to help the American people. Every one of these troops should come home. Protect our country, protect our borders. That should be the role, if there is one, of the federal government.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.